Ex-child of light, listen close and listen clear. You cannot stop me now. The 7 points have come together. The third star has merged. For 18 days, you have tortured me and humiliated me. You said you're going to give me 30 more. Well, let me tell you this. Call it off now. For 18 days, you have tried to torture me, abuse me. Don't you realize that any other mortal man would see you by now? And every day, my power feels that your power gets darker and darker. Call it off now. I cannot take 30 days. And I offer you this. Call it off now, or you will see the haze. It's up to you. What's it going to be? I can't take 12 more days of torture, because if I do, from the pit, the purple haze will come. And then you don't stand a chance beside us to rule together, the three of us. Because, Rhodes, you are dark side now. You are just like me. And Gordon Foley, you talk about me being off the mainstream. I see you carry the old Egyptian ways around your finger.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition. Well, actually, the first official edition of Beyond Bonfire. Today, we are joined by none other than one of the greatest legends in this wrestling business, a bona fide first ballot Hall of Famer, the Game Master, the Taskmaster, the leader of the Army of Darkness, the leader of the Dungeon of Doom, a man who has wrestled for every promotion you could think of and has been a top star all over the world, and the creative mind behind why WWE was beating the ratings for 92 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Sullivan has joined us tonight. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for the intro. And before we start, I'd just like to say something. I was watching that interview,
Mm-hmm.
Do you think with that face painted, I'd get away with it today, the way it was painted?
There's no way. There's no way.
No.
Not in
and
this.
That was as far out of my mind as possible. Do you know what I mean? It's the symbol of yin and yang, light and dark. Sunrise, sunset, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I understand. Yeah, I mean, that's how much the world has changed.
It really has changed a lot, and I like to think sometimes for the better, but as far as in art and as far as in performance, and especially in professional wrestling, I think it's taken a turn for the worst, because I feel things like that, envelope pushing should still be allowed in professional wrestling. To me, that wasn't a race look. It was what you said. It was the yin and yang, the sunrise, sunset. It was just as clear as, day and night.
Right.
But Kevin, we got a lot of stuff to cover here today, Kevin. Yep. Kevin, let's just give everybody an intro. Tell us just a little bit of how you got started in the business.
It was crazy. I mean, brother, you talk about nowhere near what the business is. I wrestled amateur for 10 years, and I wrestled, Waltham Boys Club, Cambridge YMCA. And I used to wrestle for the Boston YMCA Union, not the Union. Second oldest athletic club in the United States. The first being the New York Athletic Club. So I used to wrestle there and amateur, and I would see the wrestlers there. The pro wrestlers, they come in for the show, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And they play handball, racquetball, lift weights, run, the whole thing. And I was there one day, and a guy came up to me and said, I was working out with a kid, and we finished, and he said, would you like to work out? I said, sure. So we started working out. And he said, "You're going to be here tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah." So we became fast friends. Now, let me give you the guy's background. His name was Peter Berry.
Okay.
He was from South Africa. He went to Oxford and Harvard Business School. His
Oh,
family,
wow.
his family were the Berries diamond mine, second
Wow.
largest diamond mine at the time in the world.
And
Oh,
obviously, complete opposite of, what you grew up from,
right. And he wanted to be nothing but a pro wrestler. He also was a very handsome guy. He did Arrow shirt commercials. He was in some uh, uh, Days of Our Lives, that kind of stuff, soap operas.
Yeah.
And he did a bunch of commercials.
Yeah.
But he couldn't wrestle pro because it was beneath, he's an aristocrat. It was beneath his family.
Yeah.
But he wrestled in Montreal, and this is a very interesting story. There was a guy, his name was, wrestled as Pat Curry in Europe. His real name was Pat Gerard. Pat Curry, at one time in the 30s and 40s, and probably, I'm going to say, to the 50s, he would work in London sometimes 4 times a night. Not a week, 4
Oh,
times
wow.
a night. And they gave him a Rolls Royce, chauffeur Rolls Royce, to drive him around. I mean, he was not just big in England, he was big on the continent. Picked up a heroin addict problem. And because he was such a great athlete, when he came home to Montreal and a great wrestler, he opened up a wrestling school at Verdun. That's a suburb of Montreal. And he trained
Okay.
Pat Patterson, he trained Ronnie Garvin, he trained Terry Garvin, Fernand Frechette, a host of other guys.
What a list right there. What a list of great French Canadian athletes right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And Michelle Dubois, who was later Alexa Smirnoff. I mean, the list goes on and on. I think Dino Bravo. The list goes on and on and on. Well, Montreal at one time was the best wrestling city in the North America. They had
Yeah.
They had the Rougeaus and the Vachons, and they
Oh,
had
wow.
a ballpark called Girard Park. I think the park was built for the Olympics they had in Montreal. But I remember I went up to wrestle for Pat on a Sunday, and that was like a free house, a safe house. Guys
Yeah.
from both territories could, both companies, not territories, both companies could work there because
Oh, wow.
Pat was so revered. And I remember the weekend I went up, the Rougeaus drew like 34,000 people in the park on a Friday, and the Vachons did like almost 40,000 on Saturday.
Geez, so the payday must have been amazing for the guys who were working for them back then, too.
Yeah, and they were working, here's the thing. They ended up working together because Jacques Rougeau was supposed to be a tough guy that had this knockout punch that had knocked a bunch of people out. And people don't understand the history. We've talked about it before. This was very similar to Japan, where there was some how can I word this properly? There was some outside influence that wasn't the best. Okay.
Yes.
And but if you know Montreal, it's like South Boston, same thing. So
Well, I mean, there's going to be stories about people involved in situations like that coming out later this year in documentary form.
okay, but what it was Mad Dog Vachon went to the Olympics in 1948, and he was a
Yeah.
strike breaker. I mean, you heard. I don't know if you heard, but there's a very famous story where Mad Dog Vachon pulled a guy's eye out, and the guy was going his brother was going crazy. His eye, give it to me, we'll get it sewed up. And Mad Dog threw it in his mouth and swallowed it. I mean, so they eventually worked a match with the Rougeaus and Jacques Rougeau against Mad Dog. And I think later on, because Jacques had a brother too, I think they had a couple of tag teams. But even back then, people questioned the legitimacy of wrestling.
Yeah.
But they came out because they knew these guys were legit tough guys. It would be like Brock wrestling Ming.
Yeah.
In a neutral place, you know what I mean? They
Yeah,
thought,
especially considering Raymond Rougeau's background in boxing and everything like that, and the Vachons being the Vachons. I mean, you can absolutely see that going on back then. So when you got there to Canada, was that how you got your start in the 70s with the WWF?
No.
Oh.
I actually, this was late 1969, and I was working in Montreal. Wasn't smart to the business, and they sent me out there. And
you were not?
No.
They didn't give you a clue of anything that was going on, so you were just going out there killing people.
No, this first night. This happened the first night. I knew because Peter had told me what it was, and I had trained with him, so I knew what working was. But I'm in the dressing room, and I said to Peter, "When are they going to tell me what's happening?" He said, pretty soon." So he said to the referee, "Hey, what are you going to clue this guy in?" He said, "I'll be back." This went on all night, so they sent me out with Fernand Fichette, who was a big star.
Yeah.
And I'm lost, completely lost, panic situation. And I potatoed him, and he rolls outside the ring, and he's standing on the apron, and he's holding on to the top rope. Well, all the back in the day, the bullshit where you slung the guy in by grabbing the ropes.
Yeah.
Well, I panicked. I didn't know what to do, and I hit the opposite ropes, and I came off about 40 miles an hour, and I knocked him about 3 rows back. He got up and said, "F this."
You can curse on this. Don't worry. We all do.
Okay. He said, "Fuck this." And he's walking back to the dressing room, and I panic, and I jump up because Charlie Cook happened to be there. Charlie Cook always tells we tell the story that I jumped up on the top rope. I'm shitting my pants because I knew I screwed up, and I'm yelling, "Come back, come back." So now I got to go back to the dressing room. I thought, wow, I'm going to have to be ready to fight or get my ass kicked or whatever. So I get back, and he says, "What the hell happened?" And I said, "Hey, nobody smartened me up." I didn't say smarten me up. I said, "Nobody told me what to do." And he grabbed the referee, and I thought he was going to kill him. And him and I became very good friends. And when I would go up to wrestle Montreal, he'd be nice enough to take me in the ring, which was really taboo then.
Really?
But they would not have anybody in the building, and he would take me in the ring and show me some stuff. And then I was working between there, and I was working 234 Williamsburg, Brooklyn, upstairs at
Rosario.
Yeah, Marcel Rivera too. Marcel Rivera, and there was Johnny Rods,
my trainer.
Yeah, there was Pedro, there was Victor Rivera, there was Carlos Colon, Ramon Perez. I mean, big stars at that era.
You were just surrounded by Puerto Ricans the whole time.
Yeah, I was the only Anglo in the gym. I was the only Anglo in the gym. And what I used to do was after I would work out, because they had training in lockdown, during the day, and then you'd wrestle on Friday and Saturday night, and they had, people paying to come in. Like after I worked out, I would go to the theater right around the corner and see, El Santo, Mil Mascaras, Blue Demon movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah,
That's really great. That's awesome. So
yeah,
I want to fast forward just a little bit with some of the highlights we got here because we got
yeah.
something really cool I want to start you with. We're
Okay.
going to go to March 20th, 1976. So 5 days removed from so many years ago. We're going to see that young, fresh-faced, baby-face Kevin Sullivan live in action with Crusher Blackwell. And Kevin, I just want you to talk over this. We don't have the sound on this one,
Okay.
and we want to know a little something. Tell us about what it was like working for the WWF at the time.
Oh, I was a very lucky guy. Vince Senior was more than nice to me. I had worked there. I'm going to say it was, and I guess I was had balls bigger than Dallas. I don't know, but I went over and looked in this book, and I'm saying, how does he had the year already booked out?
Wow.
Because I had come in November of '75 for TVs, and he had booked out all of '76. So I'm looking at the book, and there's Hanson, who's got 3 matches. There's Brody, that's got 2. Sight unseen, he hasn't really seen these guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's got some guys. One at this period, I was starting to understand the business was intense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have our first question here that just
Yep.
came up. The question that's going to be posted up here on the screen real quick. It says, memories about the cage match with the Wright brothers in Johnson City.
Oh, the Wright brothers they were a special breed. They were a special breed. I used to wrestle in Johnson City. I was very lucky in my career. Johnson City was actually absolutely a individual territory within a territory. Does that make
Really?
sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
A guy, John Kazana, owned Johnson City. He owned Knoxville. He owned Morristown and a couple of other spot shows like Marysville, Norris Dam, the town of Norris. And
Yeah.
I was lucky that I went there, and they gave me White. They gave Whitey to me, and Whitey
Which Whitey
Caldwell.
Caldwell was the biggest babyface at that time that they had. I mean, unbelievable. They still go visit his grave to this day.
I was there the night in the park, Chilhowie Park Stadium, where he wrestled Dory Funk Jr. And at the 50-minute mark, the people started booing because they knew nobody could last 60 minutes with Whitey. I mean, and him and Ron Wright had legendary matches, and the Wrights, I think, who sent this about me and the Wrights in the cage, I think they're talking about the match that preceded this.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that story. Ron Wright, I was wrestling Johnson City every Tuesday. At that time, it was interstate, wasn't all the way done, so it was a long trip. It was like 330 miles from Nashville.
Oof.
So I'd go up there and wrestle, and they put me and Whitey together, and I noticed that all the matches, the 3 of them would be bleeding, and I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So one night, it was a strange place because it was one of the few places that we dressed in the same dressing room, but we came out different doors,
Yeah.
so it looked like it was separation.
Yes.
So Ron reaches into his bag, pulls out a file, and then pulls out a pair of brass knuckles with a chisel on top.
Jesus.
And he starts chiseling. I said, "What's that?" He said, "Oh, it's the chisel, boy. It's just the chisel." I said, "What do you mean it's the chisel?" He said, "Everybody I wrestle meets the chisel." What? He said, "Everybody I wrestle meets the chisel." I said, "You better put that away. You're not going to do it on me." And he said, "What's the matter? don't they got chisels up north? I'm thinking, oh, God, come on. So I looked at Whitey, and Whitey's smirking. He said, oh, he's just fooling around. I said, Ron, I swear to God, I hope you don't have that chisel in the match tonight. And I was chained to his brother, and Whitey was chained to him. So during the match, they got color. All of a sudden, Donnie Wright flying mares me and grabs my head, pulls it. Hold on. It pulls it, and what happens was, sorry about that. What happens was, he flying mirrors me, pulls my head, puts his thigh out. Ron Wright reaches in his tights and pulls the chisel out and puts it on his hand. Brother, it looked like one of those cartoons where the axe goes wah, wah, wah. He can't move, and he hit me. And instantaneously, I had blood in my boots.
Jesus.
I couldn't see. I thought he blinded me. So I'm up, and I reach up, and it's that thick blood. You know about it. It's like real thick. It's in my face, and I pull it out of my eyes, and I see Donnie, because Whitey had punched him sullen. I took the chain off my wrist and wrapped it around my fist. And I said, I got to kill him before they kill me. And I ran as hard as I could and hit him, broke his nose, and cut him really bad over his left eye. And he stumbled into the corner. And I said, I'm going to kill him before his brother gets him. And I grabbed him by the throat, and I pulled back to hit him. And he said, that away, youngster. Just lay it in. That's how we like it up here. I said, oh, God. I took the chain off, left the ring. I said, bullshit. I left the ring. So they laughed about that forever, but my head was numb for a year. I think I got 26 stitches, but my head was absolutely numb. But everybody got hit by the chisel. And then, like, once a month on Tuesdays and once a month on Knoxville, Ron Wright would open the show by challenging anybody, and they would come down and almost look like a work. It was so easy for him to do this, but he beat the shit out of people. I mean, he would really hurt people. And people believed in him. You know, they burnt his airplane down.
They stabbed him. They beat him.
Bombed his house. I mean, he just knew how to.
See, that's the craziest thing to me. They bombed his house is a real story. That's not a saying. No. Somebody bombed a man's house. I mean,
yeah. And Whitey, I don't know how if he had lived, he would have been a big star. And he wasn't a big guy. And back in the day, I mean, it was mostly big guys. And Whitey was tough as nails, man. Tough as nails. And what a sweetheart. I mean, because I was a punk kid, and I didn't know a wristwatch from a wrist lock. And he took me under his wing, and I lucked out. I had Ken Lucas before him as a partner, and Kenny was one of the greatest baby faces of all time. In fact, Jack Briscoe used to say, the top 5 workers he ever worked with, Ken Lucas is in that top 5.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and if you ask Punky about Kenny Lucas, oof.
Oh, he loves Kenny Lucas.
Yeah, and if you read Donnie Fargo's book, he talks about how great a performer Ken Lucas was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the Knoxville territory,
we
got some footage here. It's a little promo I want you to watch right now. It's from the year 1979. It's from Southeast Championship Wrestling. You just had a little situation happen here, and this is you talking about what's going to happen. Now, once we're done with this, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and play this one for you.
It didn't matter to me if you were in Hong Kong, if you went to Japan, if you went to New Zealand. Tanaka, didn't you think that I was going to come? Didn't you know that after you attacked my father, Tanaka, the man is a 64-year-old man in the twilight of his life. You're a professional athlete, one of the top martial art experts in the world. You're rated in the top 10 as a professional heavyweight wrestler. You're in the prime of your career, Tanaka. And let me tell you one thing. You must have made a big mistake if you didn't think I was coming. And I'm coming, brother. I'm coming to Memphis. And let me tell you one thing, Tanaka. You're going to have to prove to the people in Memphis, and you're going to have to prove to me that you're as good and as tough as you think you are. And you're not going to be facing a 64-year-old man that's helpless. Tanaka, you owe me something. You owe my family something. What makes my blood boil is what you could have done to my father, what could have happened. You injured him, but it could have been a lot more than an injury, Tanaka. And let me tell you one thing. If you think you're going to beat me on a 3-count or something like that, that match ain't going to end that way, brother. Because I'm going to come for you, Tanaka. And I'm going to come hard. And if I have to get a chair, a bell, a table, you owe me something. And you owe my family something. And what you owe me is a piece of your hide. And when you look across from me, when you get in the ring, you're not going to see a 64-year-old helpless man. And what you better do, Tanaka, is you better look hard, and you better look long, and you better stick your head between your legs and kiss your butt goodbye, because it belongs to me, Tanaka. And when I come to Memphis, Tanaka, I'm going to be gunning for you, and you better show me. You better show me how tough you are, Tanaka. And I don't think you're half as tough as you think you are, because I'm not a 64-year-old man, Tanaka, and I'm coming to Memphis. I'm not going to get a piece of your...
I guess I thought I had a microphone, huh?
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you about.
Wow.
Now, that angle to me is really great. It was a great discovery I found between you and Professor Tanaka. And what a lot of people don't know is in that angle, that was your actual father.
Right.
How did that come to happen?
Well, I had done it in San Francisco with Bob Roop, and it blew the territory open. And I mean, if you talk to some people in San Francisco that were there at the time, I mean, I was following the toughest act in the world. I was following Stevens and Patterson, and I'm not and wasn't in there. Ray Stevens to me is one of the two greatest workers I've ever seen.
Oh, he was the original Dynamite Kid. He was the original, the best technical wrestler in the world. Him and Al Costello, the Amazing Kangaroos.
Yeah, and that was a hard act to follow, and I thank God my dad was willing to do that, because it blew the territory open. But Tanaka, his name has been lost in history. Tanaka, he was he was probably 5'10" and a half. He was 280 pounds of muscle. He was Chinese Hawaiian. His name was Charlie Kalani. He was an expert marksman in the military. He could absolutely do this, and I didn't believe it until I saw a film of it. He could put 2 candles in a range, right, in a shooting range, inside, and light them, put an axe in the middle of the shooter's gun upside down. It would hit the axe and blow out the candles.
Oh, wow.
He when he died, he was buried in full military gear. I mean, this guy was the real deal.
Yeah.
But he was like most of the island boys, who were so laid back. I think sometimes the guys that are so good and so laid back, they don't get the due because they don't toot their own horn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But Professor Tanaka, everybody also needs to understand, he was one of, along with Johnny Rods, he was one of Vince Senior's regulators.
Oh yeah.
Like they tested you and they tested your attitude.
Oh yeah, and Tanaka. I mean, I have one of the greatest angles I ever did was with Tanaka, and he was such a great guy. I can't tell you how good he was. I mean, and the thing about it was he could go to New York wrestle Bruno, right?
Uh-huh.
Get beat, go away for 3 months or 4 months, because back then, usually when a heel was done with Bruno one time around, 2 or 3 shows in the garden, you were done. But Tanaka could, and he did this quite frequently, he could go and work with Bruno, go away for 6 months and come back and work with him again. And
Yeah.
then they put him in tag situations, him and Monsoon, him and Fuji. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, Kevin, what we got coming up for you next right here, we're going to continue down the road a little bit here. I believe this is Georgia, or this may still be Knoxville. We're going to go ahead and we're going to show some footage here. It's going to be Austin Idol versus Kevin Sullivan, 1979, in a Boston street fight. So we got some footage here. It's the highlights of the match. Do you remember where this one's from?
Yeah, it's from Georgia.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's from Georgia. Yeah.
Now we see you both come in, street clothes are rocking. Now, the interesting thing a lot of people forget about Austin Idol is he had a great run in New York as Iron Mike McCord before he had the secondary run as Austin Idol. What was it like working with Austin Idol at this time?
It was great. I mean, we really drew some money there, and we became partners, and it was a great thing when I became his partners. I used to do the interviews, right? And I'd say to him, you know something, every morning when I get up and look in the mirror, I'm disgusted. He'd say, what do you mean, Jackson? Do his hair. I said, because I realize I'll do anything for money to be your partner. You are scum. We get into arguments, and everybody thought, where that was leading, that we were going to turn on one another. But we never did. And, we had to run against each other. Then we had to run, me and him, against Mark Lewin, Frankie Kane, the Great Mephisto, and Abdullah the Butcher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there's Scrappy McGowan, the referee, one of the great referees of all times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and I love watching old footage like this. I mean, I wish we could have some audio just so you could hear how the crowd's reacting to all this.
Yeah.
It was just such a different era of wrestling, but I love watching it all the time. And here we go. We see Austin Idol come back on the jump on you. What were your first memories of going into Georgia, working over there?
Well, I had actually started in the NWA. First NWA territories was in Georgia. Little known fact: there was a territory in South Carolina that Dutch Mantel's brother owned, and he had TV. Red Cowan was his name, and what happened was they had pushed me a little with Dutch on TV. Dutch and I were working against one another. An old timer that the Crockett's knew came and said, hey, they want you to go to Georgia. And, I went to Georgia. I was there October, November, and December. December, I went home for Christmas. Then I went to the Panhandle, which was the Gulf Coast,
Yeah.
And I got my real start there. The other one, I was just trying to learn a little bit. But when I went to the Panhandle, they put me with Ken Lucas right away, and I've been very lucky. I've had wonderful partners that have carried me for a long time.
Yeah. Oof. That looked brutal.
Yeah.
Did you just see what I saw with Idol and you right there?
Yeah.
And there you go with the dive out right onto the floor. You see, and I feel like this is a lost art, the art of the actual brawl in professional wrestling, where it looks like a real fight. And, you know, it just, it really, it bothers me sometimes that, you know, guys didn't take a page from you and like sit down. And I mean, there's some guys who have learned that, but I always felt like wrestling's built on a fight more than a wrestling match. At least
Sure.
heat is brought on by a fight. And I mean, you were one where you went.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Everywhere you went, you were one of the best. You know, everywhere you went, every time I'd watch you wrestle, I would see you in a brawl, and I would believe every second of that fight I would see you in.
I think I got that from Ken Lucas because that's how he worked. And one of the things I learned from Ken, and I used to get shit from a bunch of guys about this, I didn't take many flat back bumps because everybody took it that way. So if everybody's taking that way, doesn't it kind of look like it's a work? So I would go forward, I go on my side. I wouldn't go take. Occasionally, I would, and I was doing that. Then I learned it from Mark Lewin. Mark would take a bump like he was a boxer, fall on his face, fall sideways. You know,
Yeah.
Mark Lewin was the top 5 baby faces of all times, and heel. I mean, he was Dusty, and that isn't just from me. That's from Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Maya.
So now from there, of course, we get into the fun stuff now. My favorite Kevin Sullivan era. We're going to start showing some clips from Florida right now. As a matter of fact, the first one we're getting ready to show is one of my favorites. It's going to be Kevin Sullivan in the Purple Haze. Dusty Rhodes versus the Purple Haze, and a very interesting angle that I remember the first time I saw this as a kid on a mixtape. I was just like, "Oh my god!"
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, and once it happens, I just want to know how the hell you got this past the censors on television.
Well, because of Eddie's geniuses.
Yeah, here you come. Look at that, ripped.
Yeah.
This is when you were still doing bodybuilding, wasn't it?
No, this was about a year afterwards, but I was still, and I was training with Mark, who was the best workout partner of all time. This guy was.
Oh, look at him. He's a beast.
He's 83, he's still squatting 405 for reps.
Oof.
Wow.
That's insane.
Alfonso.
Yeah, that's right, Daddy.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. What are some of your memories about starting in Florida?
Well, I didn't start in Florida, but I got my.
Well, I mean, when you started working in Florida.
Oh, it was an experience of. Eddie was so smart. That's why we got away with this angle. They looked the other way because, you know, Eddie gave 10% of the houses for the Sheriff's Boys Ranch. Look at Marky. He was a maniac. Oh, God.
Yes, I love it. Breaking the chair before he even hits Dusty with it.
Gets this, the broken part. You know, he looked the part. You know what I mean? One of the things about Mark Lewin that people don't know that's a pretty unique thing. He was one of the greatest swimmers I've ever seen. I've poured more water out of my socks than most people have seen.
Yeah.
But Marky was a great swimmer. We used to swim in some outrageous tides, and we used to scuba dive in some crazy places. But Mark
wasn't Mark in the Philippines with you?
Singapore, he lived.
Singapore,
yeah.
I mean, any crazy stories of over there of scuba diving and swimming out?
Yeah, we dove over there, and I mean, every day was a different experience. I mean, the sharks. I mean, I've only seen this twice. Sunfish, you know, that they look like a brim. Are you aware of them?
Yeah.
They can be 14 feet long, and they're thick. They're just like someone cut a fish in half. They got this little tail, but you know, they can weigh a ton. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so that's how is that how you and Mark's friendship really blossomed, was, your love of the ocean and going
In
in? I mean,
Pacololo, some
yeah,
Pacololo with Curtis, so
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
I feel that.
it was a great, it was a great place to work between Hawaii and, Samoa, Singapore, Hong Kong. It was Malaysia. It was a great place to work. Well, here's the thing. Dusty was so over in Florida. I mean, you didn't have to do much. I remember one time Lawler came in to work with be Dusty's partner against me and Mark. And Lawler said, "Well, what do these guys do?" He said, "Not much, but make noise, chop, and draw money." Mark was such a money drawer. I mean, he was at 16 years old. He was Rocker's partner. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually, when I was in school, I had his book. I was a teenage pro wrestler. I bought that at a book sale
Really?
when I was in school. Yeah. So and it was really cool to see
Look
like
at the
all the.
green.
Here we
Look at
go.
the green. Yeah.
Oh, look at him selling all the way to the rope like that, catching himself in the rope. I love that.
Yeah, that's a J.J. Dillon move. The flip flop and fly and the hully gully, as Arn Anderson used to say.
The Hully Gully.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, this was setting up us. This was setting up Dusty, Mark, me, Blackjack, the four of us together, and then throwing Kendall, Barry into the mix. I think this is Roop.
Oh, yeah, that's Bob Roop.
Yeah.
You can tell by the chest. And here you come in the ring now. Is that the ring bell in your hand?
I'm sure it is something. I mean, I'm not going to come in not.
It's some crazy. Oh, it's the spike.
Oh, the spike.
It's the golden spike.
Yeah.
Here comes Black.
Yeah.
And right there.
He pushed it out of the way to save Dusty,
And you stab Blackjack Mulligan with the golden spike.
He's having a heart attack.
Yeah.
God.
And the blood coming from the chest and everything. It was just, I couldn't believe you got away with this on TV.
Yeah, he was. Jack.
And then he got the locker room clearing.
Jack really put me over. I mean, this guy was the best.
And he was a huge, huge star, especially in the Southeast and everywhere he worked, really.
He was a huge man. The only guy that had hands close as Andre's was Jack.
Yeah.
And Jack was a little nutty. He sucker punched Andre twice.
Really?
He sucker punched Holly Race.
Well, that's Blackjack doing Blackjack.
Yeah, he didn't call his spots very well, right?
And of course, Blackjack being the father of Barry Windham, Ken Windham, and the grandfather to Bray Wyatt, who I still think is, no matter what happens on TV, I still think he's one of the best characters you see on television.
You know something? You know where the Fiend mask comes from?
Where?
American Horror.
Really? Yeah, the clown.
Remember the clown? Yeah.
Yeah, the clown from the carnival season. Yeah. Wow, I never put that together. Now, Kevin, we got another Florida clip I got to show you right now.
Okay.
And this is one of my favorite promos because, again, this is where you just terrified me to hell. So I love watching this one right here. And it's going to be a Dusty Rhodes promo. And
that was
well, actually, that would be really cool to watch. That's part of it too. So you're going to get two things in that one little clip right there.
That was the original video
introduction,
but that was like the first MTV type video in wrestling.
Really? Let's go ahead and play that one, James. We'll get James to load it up here in a second. And we'll have the sounds, and we're just going to dip out and enjoy it. Oop, I guess it went away. Well, he had it.
Okay.
And it went away for a second. We're working out all the bugs still with this. You're our first guest, and we're still working all that out. But here we go.
The haze would come to me. Alakamukbum, alakno. He will come from the sea like it was the creed. I said he would come from the black side. He'd come from the depths. The haze is come. Tonight it has been decreed that he will. The haze stand for the haze. The haze has come and it has been decreed from the darkness, from the turmoil. He has arisen. He has arisen.
This is the chairman of the board speaking from Waikiki Beach.
The greatest talk of all times.
Oh, yeah, King Curtis Ayukate, absolutely.
This evening in the Purple Haze is all over Diamond Head and the Jewel of the Pacific. And on the Purple Haze, there can only come a man of undeniable athletic ability. A man after the sun sets. A man that climbs the higher achievement that only those in the Purple Haze on the dark side of the moon can really understand. Determination, courage, a man, invasions he's been through. The maniac will crawl out of the depths of the cold water and strike fear into the heart of Florence.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Want to hear
I
how?
absolutely love it. That was so great.
Let me tell you something. This is how lucky we were. You see behind Mark, we didn't know it was a full moon that night. Look at that. Huh? And we had the
Perfect.
greatest talker of all times.
Everybody in their lifetime has something that they really
hold on.
believe in and have to feel for. And the special kids in the Olympics.
Hold on. Sorry about that. We want to get to, as you were saying, Kevin, I'm sorry.
We had the greatest talker of all times. One of the greatest heels of all times. We had that was a one take.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And Mark, and that water, that was January.
Oh.
Even though it was Florida, that water was cold. And
that had to be like 30 degrees.
Well, I wouldn't say it was 30, but it was no more than 48.
Just still enough to freeze you half to death.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, that's just dying for your art. All right, Kevin. So now the second half of this promo, the most terrifying part. Here we go. And I love this because after what happens, you realize there's a curtain that divides the wrestlers from the fans for the promo. Right. Watching the fans lose their minds is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. So we're going to go ahead and play that now. The second half.
All the special thing to me. I mean, being able to see with your own eyes them kids run and jumping. You know they're not handicapped when you see them really striving to be champions, because nothing in this world is any more satisfying to me. And I do work with them. I look forward to working with them all over the state of Florida, and they're very special to me, as you know. Like I say, you got to see them to know what I'm talking about, and they're special kids.
They certainly are, and of course I think everybody wants to be a champion. Speaking of champions too, I might just mention, of course, a man that you've never met, but he did leave you a very, very special glove when he left this area. The Midnight Rider recently defeated the NWA World Heavyweight Champion in Miami, and I know that you would, I mean, I'm sure that you yourself would like it.
Slip of the tongue. I know, God Solar, that I am now more prepared than any time in my life for Ric Flair, the world's heavyweight champion. Because Dusty Rhodes now is at the final conflict. Man, this guy is complete zitzo.
Here he comes, yelling and screaming and raising hell.
You told me what, Jack? You told me what, Jack? I told you I was going to beat you for 30 days, and that's what I'm going to do.
Dusty, please, stop. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
And there's the purple haze.
Right.
Hey, oh my God. Wait a
And there's the fireball. Now watch the fans. They're pulling that drapery, but they're terrified to come forward because they think you and Purple Haze are still there.
You know,
Awesome.
Dusty doesn't get his due. You hear a lot of negative things about Dusty. But Dusty drew money, knew how to draw money. And when I came back to Florida on the angle with the sister,
Yeah.
he did the right thing. He got beat in the middle of the ring the first night back. The Lose Leave Town match, which brought in the Midnight Rider, he did the right thing on Christmas Eve. We beat Dusty. I hate that people talk negative about Dream. Hey, one of the things that people don't understand in today's day is when there was territories, it was survival. You didn't know owning a territory. They said, why did they work on top and they owned the territory? Because we'll say like Hogan, one of the mistakes Hogan made, in my estimation, was when he was in Minneapolis, he was so old. If he reached out to the TV station, he could have got his own TV station.
Really?
He could have ran against them pretty well. That's what all these promoters were afraid of. That's why they didn't let guys settle in unless they owned a piece of the territory or they thought they could control them. And if they did move in, they made sure that they knocked them down on the card. Like Boris Malenko was one of the greatest heels in the history of Florida. But once he moved there, he went from drawing huge money to probably 6 months later being in the middle and then opening the card. You know what I mean?
Wow. So that's how they would get you every time.
Yeah, because they were trying to protect their own business. And I understand. And the thing going back to Vince Sr. and Jr. was Vince Sr. was not a wrestler. Vince Sr. was a businessman. And Vince Sr. had people behind him. Like Rocca, you won't remember this, but Rocca tried to run opposition to Vince Sr.
He tried to open up an NWA in New York.
With Crockett's blessing. So isn't this funny? Everybody talked about Vince Jr. putting Crockett out of business. Well, Crockett's old man wanted to put Vince's old man out of business.
Yeah.
And they actually went to Buddy Rogers and asked Buddy if he wanted to open up Washington. And it would have been a two-front. Washington against Vince Sr. and Rocca against Vince Sr. Two of the biggest.
It would have just been the two major cities because DC and New York were the major territory, were the major cities for the WWE.
And two of the biggest names in the history of the business.
Wow, that's insanity, Kevin. I got to tell you, you went over the time that we asked, and we really appreciate it. We have so much more we'd love to cover. Is there anything you want to tell everybody out there that's watching, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say this. There's things out that people take wrestling sometimes way too serious. This isn't Sir Lawrence Olivier doing Hamlet. This is John Cleese from Monty Python doing the Silly Walk. But go in and enjoy it. Don't try to be such a critic if you've never gotten in the ring or if you've never thrown a pass or if you never hit a baseball. It's like, I got a brand new thing today.
I knew it. I knew you were going to talk about it. I saw it.
A guy sent me who I don't even know. I have my gym in the house, and Linda came in with a box and said, "Who's this guy?" I said, "I don't know." And I had two hats, one from 2007 World Series, The other one's 1901. When Fenway Park, not Fenway Park, but when the American League started. And I got 2 books, one from Bill Lee, and I got all these DVDs. And I always thought that it was Williams, Yastrzemski, Sullivan that I'd eat rice out. If you don't know anything about the business, sit down and enjoy it. Don't criticize, but go back like you have and learn the history of the business. Because I think it's sad that there are guys in our business don't know who Lou Thez is, Buddy Rogers. It's like baseball players not knowing who Willie Mays is, Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
So,
I noticed you didn't say Mickey Mantle there.
right. Hey, we got a Mickey Mantle now. That Mike Trout is the closest thing I've ever seen to Mickey Mantle.
You know what? I wouldn't disagree with you there, and it's a real shame about what's going on right now that we're not being able to see him right now, because these are the prime years where he could do something special.
This is his 10th year, and this is going to later on. If this season doesn't happen, it's going to be. I hope not, but we'll say he has 483 home runs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he doesn't hit the 500 mark, or if he has 2,900 hits, you know what I mean? He has 480 doubles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just read an article about that. It's going to affect guys that were teetering for the 10-year mark on Baseball Hall of Fame, like Fred McGriff. He probably won't get in this year, so because there probably won't be a vote. So
yeah, that's what's affecting a lot of people right now, and they got to find amendments for that, because McGriff absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's him and Pete Rose both need to be in. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion.
I know Pete.
Oh yeah.
Little known fact. Okay. Dusty and Pete Rose were pseudo brother-in-laws.
Really?
Pete Rose had a baby by Dusty's sister-in-law.
Huh.
So Dusty and Pete, pseudo brother-in-laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
winter. The Reds used to winter in Tampa.
Yeah. Well, that's not the only baseball connection, because you have a relative, Seamus O'Sullivan, that used to play for the Boston Braves, if I'm correct.
No, I don't have Seamus. You're talking about my great uncle that was John L. Sullivan, and then my great uncle who was Mike Twin Sullivan, who was a fighter, and then my father's cousin, so I guess I'd be his second cousin, was either 4 or 6 times world heavyweight champion wrestler, Steve Casey.
Oh wow!
They were the most athletic family in the world. Look them up, the Casey brothers.
Well, it came down in your genetics too, my friend Kevin. As always, it's a lesson. Whenever I get to talk to you, it's a piece of history I get to learn. I always appreciate every chance I get to talk to you, my friend. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to hang out with me. And I'll be seeing you later, my friend. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you for tuning in. We're going to leave you guys with this last promo. Kevin, if you want, you can go ahead and leave now. We're going to play one of my favorite Army of Darkness promos.
Joining me this week on the edition of Grunts and Groans, the Prince of Darkness, Kevin Sullivan, the Purple Haze, and the Fallen Angel. Kevin?
I'm here for one reason, to explain how my family rose from the ashes like the phoenix, reborn again, to dwell in the house of Habuddin, brought to us by the chairman of the board. When I was a lost person floundering in the sea of life, not knowing which way to turn. A trip.
How do I
took me
turn
to
yours off?
Singapore. And as I wandered the streets, lost in a cosmic day, I looked, and there I saw him, the Mystic One, bathing in the river. And as I walked over to him, I said to him, Mystic One, chairman of the board, show me the truth. Show me the light. And he said, you have a lot to learn, my son. So sit down on this bank. And as we sat down on the bank, he turned to me and offered me the cosmic cookie. And as I chewed upon the cookie itself, everything became clear. I realized then that good and evil have been around a long time. I realized that evil and darkness has always prevailed from time immemorial. When females took from our bones, they've been taken ever since. I then realized they belong for one thing, to do the bidding for us. And as things became clearer and the haze started to lift, I looked into the river. And what I saw a face of darkness. And I saw a face of fear. And that fear was Black Jack Mulligan.
Well,
His big, ugly head rose. And then as the Mystic One gave me another beetle nut to chew on, he took me to the river again. And with Og by my side, the purple haze arose. And they told me to look in the river once more. And as I looked into the river, there was not one head. Now there was many. It became Mulligan. It became Wyndham. It became Brody. And it became the lost sheep, the one that left me, Superstar Graham. And I realized then that all the pain that all of us have gone through was for this final conflict. The 12th hour is upon us. The lines are clearly drawn. It is the children of the light against the men of darkness. And the tunnel where the light has come is going to close on Savoli's army real soon, because now we are in our final hour.
okay, fans, there you have it from Kevin Sullivan, the Prince of Darkness, along with the Purple Haze and the Fallen Angel. That's this week's edition of Grunts and Groans. We'll be back with more action.
And I know, of course,